This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.
Today's episode of Rewilding in Action is supported by Pohatu Penguins, a regenerative farming family business based on Banks Peninsula who have been protecting Canterbury's unique variant of little penguin, the white flippered penguin or Korua, for over 35 years. Join Pohatu Penguins on one of their tours to discover the world of Korua and help support their conservation effort. Visit their website at pohatu.co.nz. That's pohatu.co.nz. Kia ora, welcome to Rewilding in Action, Dr Maureen Howard, toka ingoa. There's a lot to like about pigs. They're very intelligent, social animals. However, in New Zealand, pigs root up the soil to eat plants and invertebrates. They prevent the native bush from regenerating, and the disturbance they create makes it all too easy for weeds to come in. In this episode, I've come to Banks Peninsula to find out about the very recent elimination of thousands of pigs from over 20,000 hectares here. It's potentially New Zealand's largest removal of a population that was established through illegal releases. My guest, Graham Corbishley, led the project as the contracted project manager for Banks Peninsula Conservation Trust. Graham takes me to where their pig elimination project started, a beautiful QE2 property that's dissected by Prices Valley Road between Kaituna Valley and Little River. I asked Graham how long he's been working on the project.
I started work here probably about 4 years ago, and it was purely on one of the large sheep and beef farms initially, and just to help them put a plan together to deal with feral pigs. And this is one of the areas where I started work. The pigs were established through illegal releases, and the population just grew so fast. So a small problem became a big problem very, very quickly.
Yes, and this is a very special area that we're at. We're standing in front of a QE2 covenant sign. These would be some old growth trees, wouldn't they? Absolutely.
It's one of the few examples of a lowland podocarp remnant forest, to be honest, that's left on the peninsula. So it is actually very important, and I'm glad it's been covenanted.
How big is it?
This one isn't very large necessarily. It may be even less than 15 hectares, but still it's a seed source, and with the ecological area close by, is eventually that will also regenerate into quite a large forest.
Yes, and yet when you came here 4 years ago, this beautiful understory that we're looking at right now, wasn't here.
It wasn't here. It was.
What was here?
There was evidence really of browsing and rooting. So this was one of the apparent release sites for feral pigs, and when they were released, apparently the whole understory was just gone. Right. So all you'd see is rooted dirt underneath the podocarp forest.
So at the beginning, 4 years ago, did you estimate how many pigs were here? Was that possible?
We did some early work to try and understand how many pigs were here. And typically what you would do, even in daylight hours, is look at any paddock and there would be pigs there. And often if we were driving up farm tracks, we'd be driving through mobs of pigs, 30 to 50.
Ah, so you just see them running around in the daytime.
We'd see them running around. Yeah. But the thing that really helped is monitoring is a big part of this work, initial monitoring. And that initial monitoring tells us what's out there. So that can be done with cameras, with thermal scanning, and just with scouting with binoculars and stuff like that. And so we soon built up a bit of a feel for density and abundance. And to be honest, it was quite horrific. It would be easy to find 70 to 80 pigs within 100 hectares. So the densities were very, very high.
And it's about 22,000 hectares was the grand plan. You did a trial first, is that right?
That's correct. We did trials on the property and found solutions. But the work progressed, but I said, well, look, hold on, this isn't going to work unless your neighbours join this program. Otherwise, because all that's going to happen is you'll get infiltration. We'll create a void. and you'll get new infiltrations. And so this is a really good example of a landowner-led, community-led initiative. The landowners got together, we attracted funding, and then started working collaboratively. So
from government funding?
It was government funding, initially from local government, city council biodiversity funding. Eventually we were able to attract national funding from the Department of Conservation Wild Animal Team and a DOC Community Fund and ECAN, or the regional council funding. Yeah. What attracted that was the fact that we had early success and we could keep demonstrating ongoing success. So I think there was more confidence to fund ongoing work once people could see the results from that work. The key to this is to try and it applies to suppression of any animal pest, really, is to keep them as naive to hunter pressure for as long as possible. And so what we did with the pigs, for instance, is used knockdown methods that were primarily trapping and thermal assisted shooting. Okay. And we could achieve up to 90 to 95% suppression just with those two methods alone. We did some early work using aerial work with high definition thermal equipment in the choppers as well. But we had a lot of ground-based camera monitoring on the ground. When that aerial work was finished, the contractor thought that they'd done a very good job, and no discredit. What they hadn't realised is we were monitoring on the ground, and what they'd actually done is taken about 10%.
Oh!
Yeah, so the land cover really is hard work with aerial operations, but also not just that. You're dealing with a species that's very, very smart. They adapt to threats very quickly. So as soon as they hear the noise of a helicopter, they'll seek cover. And you've got the same, happening with our Himalayan tahr, for instance. Same thing. They're so used to the pressure, they hear the threat, and so they'll just seek cover, or they'll learn to get under a bush or just not be seen. And even with thermal work, you might see a little blob of heat in the forest, but you can't really shoot at something you can't identify. So what we found is the best methods for our project came from working on the ground, at the ground level. And so we layered the knockdown methods, trapping, thermal shooting, and then introduced dogs at low density. Whereas a lot of New Zealand recreational hunting is done with dogs, but it's one of the worst things you can do is let a pack of dogs into a gully with 30 pigs in it, because they'll get 2 or 3 and the rest escape, and the rest are educated.
Oh, right, to avoid dogs.
That's it. And so you've changed the behaviour. They're not naive anymore. And so we just go under the radar and stay as discreet as we possibly can for as long as we possibly can. And
you partly do that by having your pilot area that you worked on, did your trialling, and then when you feel you've got it really good, then you can go bigger.
That's the thing. I mean, the elimination work has not really been done on this scale in New Zealand before. Right. And so we had to convince ourselves first that it could be done, because what we were faced with was this cost of ongoing annual suppression, and so if you have to keep suppressing the population, the residual population every year, that's a difficult job.
And a population that's getting smarter and smarter every year,
absolutely,
shyer and shyer.
Absolutely.
So let's just take a step back, because you've used the word elimination and. Well, when I first approached you, I was using eradication and suppression. Do you want to describe the differences between them?
Sure. The key difference really is that there's some criteria set down by some researchers and scientists called Bomford and O'Brien, and it's been around since the mid-90s, I think. And so for eradication, you've got to satisfy 3 key criteria, and one of them is no net immigration, so that there's no risk of anything new coming in. Whereas with elimination, we could not guarantee someone, not releasing pigs in the future, so that there would be a risk to us in the future of someone releasing pigs again. So we've talked about this being elimination, and what we do in the long term is keep monitoring in place. So if anyone does a silly thing like releasing pigs, we'll find them pretty quick and remove them. And so that's really just the key thing.
And that's done with cameras?
It's done with cameras and thermal scanning, and the use of indicator dogs. So we'll sweep areas with indicator dogs, but also at this time of year in winter, we look for sign a lot, so just tracks in the mud, or wallows, or any dead carcasses being disturbed, or cow pats being overturned, or any surface rooting. the pigs will eventually show themselves in one way or another.
Right.
But the lower the density, the harder it is to find them.
Well, it is amazing. So over this 4-year period, you've eliminated,
Yes.
in the technical sense, pigs from 22,000 hectares.
Yes.
It's incredible, absolutely incredible.
I'm still daunted by it, and I'm, after seeing what the place was like at the start, to see what it's like now, it's still soaking in.
Yes. Does the shape of Banks Peninsula help with that? The fact that it is a peninsula?
Essentially, that's a good point. I mean, if the pigs had covered the whole peninsula, which was the risk, then we could treat it like an island to a certain extent. But what we were fortunate to be able to do is to put a circle around the population that had established, and so we just shrunk that perimeter. So, essentially, if we hadn't done any work, that perimeter would have expanded, to the wider peninsula, essentially.
Yes.
It is magic when you've got, the geography to be able to do stuff like that, to be honest.
Yeah. Shall we go and look at some of the equipment?
Sure.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. That car might have just locked itself. So
okay. Well, we'll head to your storeroom.
Yeah, sure. Well,
and have a look at some of your traps, and you can try to explain to me how it all works.
Not a problem. Right in front of us here is actually a gate. These are light alloy pinned together, so we can actually put a trap up any size within probably about 20 minutes. And
but piglets, could they get out through there? This is sort of the rungs of it.
In some cases, we put a little bit of mesh around the base if there are piglets.
So how are they getting in through this hole?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is actually the gate, which isn't in place at the moment, but it goes in here and slides up and down. It can be pinned together to form a circle or any shape.
Right.
The thing is that we connect the traps to the internet via a cellular network or Starlink, and so we can monitor the traps remotely using a camera, and we can activate the gate remotely as well from the comfort of my living room. And so quite often what happens, it's like a security camera. You'll get an alarm on your phone, you'll look at it, you'll activate the camera, have a look, oh yes, there are pigs there, and then we can pan tilt the cameras around to check what's there, and if we've got the target group in there, we'll actually drop the gate. And
I presume you've got a food source in there too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we primarily use fermented barley, and the fermentation means that the barley won't propagate, so we're not creating another problem. But it also leaves a very sweet smell, so you've got some alcohol content in there probably, so you've got some very happy pigs once they start chewing on this. But it's like steel to a magnet. With all the individual grains spread over grass, they'll search for every last grain, and so what we do is condition a site using the barley, even if the trap's not there, train them to keep coming back to that site, and when we've got the mob that we want to target all coming, we'll actually put the trap up, and within a night or two we've actually got the lot. And it means that we can use a small number of traps ahead of the conditioning process and just keep moving them around.
And in their family groups, are they sort of territorial against other groups?
A little bit, pigs? But they are very social, and quite often you'll see three generations sticking together. But when the sows are ready to farrow, they'll often go away and farrow and then come back to the sounder. The older boars, they'll often split away and they'll just start doing big circuits to other mobs, and so it's quite a dynamic social group.
Right.
But quite often the offspring from a sow will stay as weaners, with that sow until there's a new litter, and then they may go and do their own thing. Here what we found is they all stuck together, and so you'd often see the 3 generations, sometimes 4 generations. Right. But the dynamics change when you start putting a bit of pressure on. And
then do you tend to trap them at a certain time of year?
It's actually not that dependent on the time of year necessarily. So as soon as we target an area where we know there are pigs, we'll feed it out, condition it, and put the trap in. But there is a time of year where we use a second method, which is really useful to use in winter, and that's thermal assisted shooting. Mm-hmm. And so it means during winter the ground's cold, and anything warm is generally an animal, and so that shines off out pretty quickly. And so to use the two methods together, if we trigger a trap and there are 2 left outside and 10 inside, then we can go in straight away, thermal shoot the ones outside. And that's another way of combining methods to actually, clean up what's there, which is quite effective. But I've got more equipment, the big stack out the back, if that's of any interest as well. I'll just lay that one back. Over here, what we've got are the power packs that power the Starlink units or the cellular units. And these are it's a big like a big toolbox, but it's got lithium-ion batteries and just protection gear, switch gear, and solar charging gear. And so we just use big solar panels on the pig traps to keep this refueled, and that drives the communication with the internet. And the cameras are all independent, they're Wi-Fi cameras, and so even if this isn't working, the cameras keep recording independently, and they've got their own memory in them, so we can actually just look at the cards in the camera and figure out what's been there.
Well, there's a fairly hefty cost price for this.
Yes, there is. Like these, I call them smart traps because of the way we use them. So they're not inexpensive, but you can amortise that cost over 5 years or longer. The gear doesn't wear out, and that means the annual cost is quite low, and so you're getting a very high return on your annual capex really.
And of course, you're doing it over a vast area of land. So
Yes.
It's not a small operation.
No. But the key is to have a program of work where you can condition sites and move the traps in behind that conditioning, so you can always keep them working.
And you talked earlier about, you're shrinking this circle.
We started with a perimeter where we knew there was nothing outside, quite a large circle, and then progressively through time we were able to validate smaller circles, and eventually down to remnant individual pigs that are left, and it's just a way of shrinking the problem down to nothing.
And I think maybe we didn't talk about this on air, but how those pigs got there in the first place.
Right. Well, the ones in this area were released illegally prior to 2015, and it was just done to create a recreational hunting resource. The challenge with that is it's not legal, but it's quite endemic throughout other parts of New Zealand and the world, really. So a lot of
What do you mean, the pigs?
Yes.
Or the problem?
The problem, a lot of the pig populations in New Zealand have actually been established through illegal releases, and that's unfortunate, really, because it's often not landowners doing it. It may be a small faction of a hunting group that's doing it and not realising the implications of that. The challenge we faced is that release resulted in a huge problem here that was spreading, and we better
put the lid back on.
We removed.
Started to rain on us.
We removed more than 3,500 pigs, within this area.
Wow.
So it's a lot of pigs.
It is. Shall we go into a shed?
Yeah, I'll just open it. It's starting to rain.
Yeah.
I'll just open that roller door.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
How many people are working with you on this project?
There's a hunting team that's been helping on this, but there's a big group of unsung heroes in behind all of this too. Even the role the Conservation Trust has played in this to help raise funding. There's some landowners who have been absolutely magic in helping whatever we want. They've helped to provide it, and not just in cash but in kind contributions as well. So we've trained them to help with monitoring, to help recognise where the problem is, and to help alert us, so we can sort of focus our effort. And so I don't know the total size of the team in the background. We have been dealing with 170 landowners, and I think what was really magic was their acknowledgement of how serious this problem was. So they weren't debating it. They just said, right, we need help. If you can help us, that's cool.
So that's very rewarding. Anyway,
yes.
And for you to see the bush, and we talked a little bit before, when we were off air, about your past, because you were brought up a hunter,
yes,
but also a conservationist.
That's correct. Yes, I've got a huge respect for Mother Nature and conservation.
Yeah.
And I guess my civil engineering background, it was all about solving problems. And so all I'm really doing is helping to solve problems, and learning along the way too. Every day's a learning day.
Yes, which is quite exciting. Yeah. Keep you young.
Absolutely.
Keep us all young. Yeah. So you've done so much here. Like, how can the rest of New Zealand benefit from what you've been doing?
I think there are several parts to that. It's not an easy question to answer. It is a very good question. The thing is, what we're keen to do is to raise the knowledge of the impact of these animals and the invasive nature of them, and try and engage with people to actually raise that knowledge. But also from the experience we've had with suppression and elimination, to try and share that experience with other communities who have got the same problem or are facing the same problem. Now, that's actually started to happen really nicely. I'm doing work in North Canterbury to help communities there, and I'm doing work on the Chatham Islands as well, which is really timely, to be honest. So there's no need for them to reinvent wheels. We can actually hit the ground running by using experiences that we've learnt here. In fact, there's a 20-foot container just over by the woolshed there that'll be going to the Chathams in 2 weeks full of gear. So there's a whole lot of traps that have just been fabricated, ready to go.
Yeah.
And they can't wait.
Yes, I'm sure. And they've got quite unique, they've got a lot of wetland there, which is so worth protecting, and a lot of endemic species that we don't have.
Oh, absolutely. And there's some huge restoration projects there, which, pigs aren't compatible. A lot of endangered species and ecosystems, so the pigs shouldn't be there in some areas. But it's sensitive. It's a sensitive subject because some recreational hunters, they enjoy the sport, and I respect that. But it's hard to find that balance between having a recreational hunting resource and protecting biodiversity and other things at the same time.
Because even a low number of pigs can do a lot of damage.
Absolutely. But there's also a committee behind the work that we do. So we've got a committee of landowners and agencies where we brainstorm ideas, and that's also helped to build that social licence, and we're trying to replicate a similar thing in the Chatham Islands as well. The social licence is very important to actually get to a point where the majority accept that this work needs to be done and will support it.
Yes, and that just takes time, doesn't it?
It does. The other part of that is that we can't always expect agencies to keep funding work like this, so we've always got to keep looking for different ways of how can we do this more cost effectively, and how can the landowners help themselves, how can we upskill them to actually help with monitoring and removal. And that's where the traps come in very handy, because we can train the landowners to use them.
Ah, okay.
And do a lot of the work themselves.
Yes, and it is a skill, isn't it, to learn to understand and know when all of the animals are inside, and allowing them to build up confidence so that they're going into the trap and just feeding.
You're absolutely right.
There's a lot of stages to go through.
The trap's important, but it's actually the trapping process that's the whole, the most important, and it requires a lot of patience.
Yes.
To a point where some people just don't have that patience.
Right.
And it's also no joke being woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning to trigger a trap. So I've trained myself now to do it and go straight back to sleep. But quite often the alert will come through the phone, in the early hours of the morning.
Of course.
And so, you just take a look, because you know what to expect from the monitoring, and then if the target species and numbers are in there, bang, down goes the gate. And then text the farmer to go and deal with it in the morning.
Well, it's so marvellous what you're doing, Graham, and just for us to go and visit that piece of bush and to know that it was so degraded underneath and now it's flourishing. You must feel so good.
I do, and I really appreciate being able to show you around. I'm sorry I just couldn't show you any pigs.
Thanks very much to my guest, Graham Corbishley, for giving his time to share this amazing outcome that he and his team have done, and how they made it happen. I really like that Graham and the team have found a ground-based approach, that animals are shot rather than killed by toxins, that they're able to reuse their equipment over and over, and that it's been actually really fast. The whole population was eliminated in just 4 years. And this pig elimination initiative fits in well with Hugh Wilson's minimum interference management approach to rewilding, where if it's possible to eliminate an invasive weed or pest without many negative side effects, then the thing is to do it. And it's fabulous that this approach will be deployed to other locations such as the Chatham Islands. Thanks for listening to Rewilding in Action. I'm Maureen Howard. I'll be so grateful if you share this podcast with people you think would appreciate it. In my next episode, I talk with Craig Pauling and Peter Joyce about Te Ara Kakariki, the Greenway Canterbury Trust, and how plots of native plantings are being spread across the Canterbury Plains that has less than 1% cover of natives. Until then, I will leave you with birdsong, recording details in the show notes of Ruru Moorpork that's loved by my guest, Graham Corbishley, who is helping natives take the lead.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.